Okay.
Yes. What is the toughest conversation you've had with a date or somebody you've been seeing a little bit, but not quite your boyfriend or girlfriend yet? Today on the show, we are going to talk about difficult conversations. What a time to be talking about that, right? My name is Richard Francois. I am your dating strategist. And with me today, of course, is my illustrious co hostess, Elaine Saunders. Hello, hello, Elaine.
Hello, Richard.
I'm
How are
excited to
you?
be doing another show with you. I'm excellent. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, considering.
Excellent. Well, we're about to change that.
Oh, you're about to change it for the better,
We're
or
about to change it.
like
We're going to go
start
from
it
pretty
over?
good
I'm gonna
to
mess it
pretty
all up.
naughty very soon. I think we're going to talk about difficult conversations. We have somebody coming on. I'll let you talk about that. Hello, Tammy. How are you doing? Good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
If you are new to the show, do what Tammy just did there. Let us know that you're here. Say hello, make a comment, ask a
Hello.
question. We have an excellent show for you tonight. I'm really excited about what's about to happen.
Same
But
here.
just to say, have you been on a date with somebody and they ask you a question, and not so much as personal, but it's just a difficult kind of topic. How do you navigate difficult topics, whether in your early dates or as it's developing into a relationship? Stay tuned. Elaine, who do you have for us today?
I am so excited, Richard. We have a guest tonight. And not only do we have a guest, like a guest for the first time in quite some time. It has
Right?
been the Elaine and Richard show, seemingly, for the past few weeks, for almost, I guess, a couple of months now. But we have our first guest for the new year. And who we have is Stephanie Costello. And she is an intimacy and relationship coach all rolled into one. And she's awesome. I had the pleasure of meeting her a few weeks back in 2020, and we talked about having her on the show, and it seemed like forever to get her on, but here we are. It's finally the dates approached, and here she is. It's Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie.
Awesome.
Yes,
Something
very.
great came out of 2020. You got to meet Stephanie. I love it.
There's been some good things. Good things came out of 2020. Absolutely. So we're here to talk about the challenging conversations that can come out of dating, and I can't wait to hear some of the wise the wise advice you have for us. So
thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, strategies or any light you could shed on our daters.
Sure.
To help us improve our dating.
I have a question to get us started, Stephanie, because your title is an intimacy and relationship coach. And one of my pet peeves as a dating coach is when people use the word intimacy wrong. So set them straight, will you?
Yes, I would love to.
What is intimacy not? Because people just
say,
have you been intimate with so-and-so, and I know they don't mean intimate. They mean sex. So tell us, what is intimacy and what is it not from your professional opinion?
Yes, intimacy is not just what happens behind closed doors. In fact, there are different types of intimacy. So there's educational intimacy or intellectual intimacy, experiential intimacy, physical touch, non-sexual intimacy, emotional intimacy, right? So there's all these different ways we bond with people. And so I chose the word intimacy intentionally because it creates this like, oh no, she's going to talk about sex. But then when they get to talking to me, it's like, actually, I don't have that conversation unless you want me to. And that should be across the board how everyone has the conversation, not avoiding it, but not having it until it's appropriate. And I think that's very much in alignment with what we're talking about tonight.
Until it's appropriate. That is the question. How do you determine when it's appropriate? What do you talk about and when? I want to give you a chance to ask a question, but the first thing that comes to mind for me is politics. Politics is hot right now. Everybody wants to talk about it. They're not sure who to talk about it with. Sometimes they open up to somebody they thought was, quote, safe to talk about it with, and there's backlash. And so how does one determine when it's appropriate to discuss certain topics like politics or other hot button issues?
Just like in, it's interesting. In my industry, we use or even in business, we use the term dating a lot. Like we got to date people before we can ask them to marry us or ask them to kiss us
Yes.
or like whatever level, right? So in dating, it's building that trust and building that vulnerable environment and making sure that both parties have that core foundational skill of being able to communicate, right? And have some sort of level of emotional intelligence and figuring out like, where are you on the spectrum of being able to have a conflicting conversation without having these terrible tendencies that we tend to fall to. And so the more we build trust, then we can have the conversation. We don't want to off the bat say, what are your politic views? When do you want to have sex? Like, are we going to have a blended family? Like all of the different really hot questions. Give it some time. Just get to know each other. What are your common interests? What are my common interests? And getting to know the person as at their core and their core foundation, and then building upon that. Because once you know the core foundation and you understand who they are and their interests and such, then you can build on that, right? Politic views, they change. All of these other worldly semantics, our physical world stuff, shifts all the time. So once we can get a hang of who we are inside and what our world, our spiritual world is like, our energetic world is like, and if we can connect with each other, then we have the challenging conversations.
Awesome. Thank you. I love that. Just like have the trust first, the foundation built, and then start adding to it, start questioning this, questioning that. I like that. I'm trying to come up with an analogy, but it's not coming up fast enough. So I'll just go over to you, Elaine. What's a question that you have for a wonderful guest tonight?
So interesting. People who are dating, because this comes up when people date, oftentimes they ask, like, when do you bring up what, for example, what someone's looking for in a relationship? Where some people are coached to find out right away and eliminate, or kind of, you're sifting through gravel and you're trying to find a gem. So you're kind of like sifting. And so people ask you, like, right off the bat, what are you looking for? And sometimes you're stunned into like this silent, I don't know what I'm looking for. And somebody will say, well, I'm not looking for marriage. And it's like, oh my gosh, so it's like you get into this kind of banter, and it's like, what and how much do you it's like a game of cards, and you have your cards, and you don't know if you should reveal your cards or how to play. They say how to play your cards. It's like a game. People treat it like a game.
And it doesn't have to be, because the more we treat it like a game, the more we're treating it. I actually wrote this down. One of the big things that I like to comment on is like, what's the elephant in the room? I'm someone who's like, there's a Band-Aid there and I'm ripping it off, and it might hurt a little bit, but guess what? On the other side of that is a lot of happiness. Right. So when we feel we have to protect our game and protect our cards, we're coming from a place of fear. We're moving out of a place of insecurity and, oh no, I don't want to be rejected. And I really want, and oh no, what am I going to do? Right. And it's just like this back and forth internal storm that we get stuck in. And so to speak to when to ask the questions of what you want right off the bat is my opinion. And knowing what you want, not what you don't want. Because if you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. So flipping that, right, and figuring out what do you want, because then when you're reaching out to people or you're connecting with people, you're automatically going to know what you're not interested in, and you're going to be able to sift that without even having to have a conflicting conversation. You're going to be ahead of the game, and you're going to be able to be more open and trusting and vulnerable rather than closed off and protective and fearful.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
How often do you I was going to say, for your clients, how often do you tell them to tune into their intuition and to follow their gut when they're like, for example, you meet somebody right away and they go by their gut. They know they want to be married. They know they want a relationship, but their gut instinct tells them, this isn't the one for me. but they don't really have that much to go by. There's not a lot of substance there. They just met the person without investing a lot of time in getting to know someone. Maybe just a word or how somebody phrased it just rubs you the wrong way. Do you coach people to give more time and effort into getting to know someone, or do you tell people to really get in touch with their intuition? Do you have a theory on that?
I do. A lot of my coaching, I don't necessarily do coaching with dating specifically. I'm not a dating specific relationship coach. My relationship coaching is more around how to have a relationship with yourself first, and then others in your world, and then behind closed doors, right? And so when it comes to making decisions on, I apologize, your question lost me. What was the question again?
Basically, because I find when I work with clients, a lot of them seem to dismiss people without investing any time or effort in getting to know somebody. And I don't know if it's just that they're just judging really fast without giving anybody time or effort in investing to get to know them, or it's just their instinct or impatience, because I think society now is such an instant gratification. They're just conditioned to swipe and eliminate and process something so quickly, whereas back in the day, our great grandparents were forced to have to write letters that were delivered by Pony Express, and they had to wait weeks before they even communicated, and now we're like forced by COVID, and people are griping about it, and I kind of chuckle. It's like if they knew what our great-great-grandparents had to go through to develop a relationship, this is like a walk in the park in comparison, but people do not have the patience. So I always say, part of it, so you have to kind of tune into your instincts as well, your gut instincts, which are often correct.
They're definitely often correct, and it depends on where those gut instincts are fueled from, right? Like earlier when we talked about, are you fueling them from a protection and a fear stance, or are you fueling them from an open and able to really endure some potential letdown? And so to speak to the dismissal, like how people dismiss people very quickly, in our current society, we're able to click a button and have something delivered to our door within that day, if not, right? So we're able to get that instant gratification. And the reason I took on the intimacy coach title is because we get so much false intimacy from Facebook and Google and all of these other companies that provide this artificial intimacy. And so my goal is to help people to be slow with the process and be okay with discomfort, and how to, pain is inevitable, suffering is an option. So if we're fearful of preventing suffering, then we're never going to make that action. We're never going to get to that goal or get to that next step where we really want to achieve some sort of goal, which in this case would be dating, right? So it's partially intuition. It's partially understanding how our society has conditioned us to have this instant gratification. And then it is partially moving from understanding what you want and not just kind of throwing darts. Like when we just kind of throw darts at the wall and hope it sticks, right? Or spaghetti and hope it sticks, it's not going to stick. And so being intentional, being deliberate, and making sure you're clear on your intentions.
Wow. I love what you said about pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Take out your pencils, kids, and write this one down. Some of you are like, what's a pencil? Write that one down. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. We had some questions that we wanted to ask you that we wrote down. So before we get so caught up in this wonderful conversation, let's see if we can get to some of those questions too. How does someone know if their fears are in control in the relationship or the dating or whatever? How do they know when their fears are in control versus something else?
Everybody's body reacts differently. So it's knowing how your body is reacting. So it goes first thought, then memory, then emotion, right? An emotion is just an energy in motion in your body. And so when we hear something from somebody and we're expecting an answer and we have this desire in us and we hear something and our thoughts, and then we have a memory, and that memory could be attributed to a fear, and then we have an emotion where we have a physical reaction in our body. So I tend to get it in my throat and in my chest. Some people get it in their stomach. It depends on where your body is. And that's where, Elaine, like you were saying, trust your intuition. Sometimes your intuition is your brain actually creating a chemical reaction that isn't in alignment with what their perspective or intention truly was. So it's working through the conversation past that initial wall to understand, was my intention right? Was my intuition right? What's their perspective? And kind of brainstorming together and being okay with hearing each other out and asking more questions. So that you know your fears based on how you react emotionally, internally. So now that I've said that, if you're like, I don't know how I react, the next time you engage in some sort of conflicting experience, or you're nervous, or you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off and you react emotionally, you're getting a body reaction too. And it's just
makes sense.
Yeah.
So what are some tips when feeling stuck in a challenging conversation? If you feel like you're getting nowhere, you're in a conversation with somebody and you really feel stuck, I guess the best way to describe it is you just really feel like you're not accomplishing anything, and it's escalating. You're not making any progress.
Absolutely. So being stuck in a challenging conversation, I'm someone who's a 1, 2, 3 kind of person. I'm very assertive and I set very strong boundaries. Granted, I didn't succeed at that, my whole life, but it's a practice. It's a skill. It's something that requires some muscle memory. So if you're in the conversation, first off, just be honest. Like, again, I ripped the Band-Aid off. Another version of that, to speak to it, is like calling the elephant out in the room, right? Like, we all want to say it, but we're too afraid to say it. So if you're feeling stuck, saying, I'm feeling a little stuck here, I'm not sure we're on the same page, can we brainstorm, or can we figure this out, right? And just calling out the emotion, because that other person might say, I'm not having a challenge. Why, I don't understand. Let's figure it out. Are you having a challenge? And if they don't respond with wanting to collaborate and compromise, which actually, I don't know if now is the right time. This is like my overarching love to teach this skill, because it's really how to navigate conflicting conversations, or have some skill in conflict management where you're in control, you're feeling like you've given it your all, and at some point you decide, like, okay, I can't do this conversation has to end because it's clearly going nowhere. The person's not respecting me. I've attempted. Maybe we both need to take space, and just kind of like being strategic internally with your decisions rather than just going and doing what you are initially conditioned to do.
If I'm on the phone, I usually just hang up. That's what I'm conditioned.
Yeah.
I think Stephanie would give a D- for that one.
I mean, at least say, okay, I'm done with this conversation. I'm hanging up now.
The dog's barking.
Sorry, bad connection. Click.
Can you hear me now?
I know the connection between me and you, not between the phones.
That's funny.
I gotta go. Bye.
That's so funny.
Conflict resolution right there.
Yes.
Oh, well, I don't know. It's hard. It's really difficult sometimes,
I can speak to the actual conflict resolution if you'd like me to.
Yes, please do.
Cool. So this is, I was going to share my screen because I'm used to being on Zoom, but I can't do that, which is okay. There's a gentleman by the name.
Screen. If you look on your screen, your screen. If you click on that, it will allow you to do your thing.
Share it. I'm a little nervous to do that because I don't know how to use this, so I'll just go ahead and chat it.
Yeah.
and they can Google easily Thomas Kilman, as a gentleman by the name of Thomas Kilman, who came up with conflict management styles. And
Okay,
there's
so
a
put that in the comments, right?
sure.
You can.
There's
Go
a
ahead.
really neat little graphic that he came up with, and it's X axis, Y axis, assertiveness going up, cooperativeness going to the side, right? And so we have competing or avoiding, and we have collaborating, compromising, and accommodating. So when we engage in conflict, our fear responses have been activated. So most often if we haven't practiced being able to work through our emotional brain, which is in the middle of our brain, and being able to bring us out of our emotional brain and into our frontal lobe, which is our thinking brain, the chances are the conversation is not going to go effectively. It takes practice. So being okay with saying, I need to take space. Let's come back to the conversation in 10 minutes. I love you, or depending on what level of part of the relationship you're in, if you're still in dating, it's like, I'm going to use the bathroom, right? I'll be back. And then we'll continue this conversation. And so when we feel we have been engaged in a conflicting conversation, there's this level of being cooperative. There's this level of trying to figure out, okay, how can we accommodate? How can we collaborate? How can we compromise here? Most often, so Elaine, your response is an avoiding tendency. The other side of that would be competing. Oftentimes when we engage in conflict, we want to compete, like, you're going to hear my point, you're going to hear my side of it, right? And my side needs to be heard. There we go, perfect. And so at some point, right, when the 1, 2, 3 for me is, our brain works in 3. So when we need someone to understand something, if we try by the 3rd time and they haven't kind of gotten to our page, haven't tried to figure it out with us, then we start to just be assertive. We're not avoiding, we're not competing, and we've tried to be cooperative, and they're not also playing the cooperative game. So we're just going to go right to being assertive and setting a boundary or making a statement where we're not going to continue to collaborate and compromise and accommodate. And this speaks to the nice guy syndrome that we were talking about before the show. Most often the nice guys will just cooperate and or the nice ladies, they will just, whatever the other person is asking or wanting, they'll just go for it instead of being assertive in what they're desiring. And so assertiveness is really, really important, especially when we're moving our boundaries in a way that's not healthy for ourselves.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So as I'm thinking about it, so you said nice guys cooperate. And when I talk to my clients, I tell them there's 2 types of guys, and I'm here trying to develop a new type of my guy. So I say there's the nice guy, which we talked about. The nice guy cooperates, and then there's the bad boy, and the bad boy is all about compete.
Yeah,
that's all he cares about. It's his way or his way. The highway is not even an option with the bad boy.
Yeah,
it's his way or his way. So he's competing, and then there's what's in the middle, and I call that guy the mischievous gentleman. He gives a little. He takes a little, just enough to keep it intriguing, but enough to also be thoughtful and be a cooperative partner long term. Because neither one of those guys is sustainable long term.
right.
One's going to be boring long term, the other one's going to be suffocating and domineering, and you're not going to feel like any sense of self or satisfaction there. So
Right.
I love that you presented a whole new way of looking at it.
I'm glad it was helpful. Yes. I tend to get super nerdy with this stuff, so hopefully this is understandable for the listeners.
I am not nerdy at all, so I love that you are.
Push up my glasses.
Frontal lobe, neocortex. Some
Yep.
of our viewers are like, oh my gosh, I got to take notes. Richard never talks about that stuff. Neither was Elaine.
Yeah.
So you're making them very happy. The people who love the information, love the technical stuff, they're very happy right now.
I'm glad to hear. That's awesome.
Yes.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, conflict isn't easy. It's uncomfortable. It can be miserable in a lot of ways. And again, back to the pain is inevitable, suffering is an option, right? Dating is painful. It sometimes isn't always the funnest, right? Unless we go in with clear intentions, we're confident, we're trusting in who we are, and we know what we want. A coach of mine talks about how, and he's a marketing coach, so he's a very intelligent individual, and he talks about how he literally wrote an ad for his partner. And he had just gotten a divorce, and he was like, he went through the same steps he might write an ad for in business as he did for his partner. And he says the two of them met, and one of the first things she said was, I just want you to know I'm not going to be messaging you all the time or talking to you all the time. He's like, yes, my golden partner, right? And he's so funny. And he's like, neither of them ever thought they were going to get married, and she loves him and lets him just be who he wants to be. And it's like a perfect match. They're a match made in heaven, he says. And he would have never been able to nail that down if he didn't take the time to figure out what it is that he really does and doesn't want.
I think most people do not take that time. And it's very interesting to me that more people take more time to figure out the kind of car they're going to drive, the house they're going to buy. I mean, a house is important. You're going to live in a long time. But like, for example, a car, you usually change it up and out every like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Your partner, you're supposed to live with for the rest of your life, and you put less time into thinking about who you should be with than the car you're going to drive. You just kind of wait until you stumble into somebody and then figure out whether or not they're going to be right for you. It's so weird to me how,
or behind closed doors way too quickly, and then figure out like, oh, wait a minute, I actually don't like talking to you.
Yeah, you looked good though when I met you.
I have another question, Stephanie, about conflict. The question I have about conflict is, Stephanie, what can somebody do to help build up their ability to deal with conflict? I think we're now in a society that has several generations deep of people who are conflict averse. So, and technology makes it easy. You can ghost somebody now. Before you could just hang up on it, but now you have the option of you can hang up the phone, you can ghost them, you can block them. You don't have to deal with any of the conflicts of yesteryear. And that makes it more difficult to build intimacy, because part of what creates intimacy is going through a conflict together and coming out the other side. No?
Yes, 100%.
What can someone do to build that muscle of dealing with conflict?
Start in a place that's not 100% vulnerable, right? When you're sitting down with somebody new, you're sitting down in a place that you have that. It's pretty much like a 50-50. You're either being accepted or rejected, right? There's really no in between. Whereas with your family or, a sibling that is experiencing a conflict, or that you might have a conflict often, starting there and using the 1, 2, 3, like the stating something once, stating it twice, stating a third time, and saying, I've tried to have this conversation with you, but I'm going to take space and walk away. And keeping the what needs to be worked on is the feeling and being okay because when your heart starts to race and you're breathing and your body's perceiving the situation as a fear, it's like giving yourself the space to recognize and just breathe, like stop and breathe, stop and recognize your heart rate, stop and recognize. You can even, once you get really good at it, you can feel your earlobes get smaller. Right? Our fear senses create such a significant reaction in our body. To practice, I would say do it on a level where you're not getting kicked out of your family. You're not getting kicked out of work, hopefully. And it's all about really looking the intuition, as Elaine was mentioning earlier, looking within and understanding, oh, wow, I just totally reacted, and focusing on you. So my overarching message is you are in control. Like, own your power, embrace who you are, and break cycles. If you're deliberate in making that choice, those choices of owning your power, focusing on embracing who you are, being in control, and really breaking cycles, that intention, it's a muscle memory. We have to exercise the muscle in order for it to work. And that really, it's all about the coaching. my coaching would be the great place to start, I guess, to say.
Thank you. What I'm hearing from that, what I'm getting from that is to start from a place that is safe. And for different people, that may be different things. For somebody, it might be their men's group or their women's group, their book club, their whatever, a place where they know they can express certain views and be embraced without being judged. Like, oh, girl, it's going to be fine. What's wrong with you? None of that. But like, oh, come on, you got to man up. None of that. But just a place where it's okay to have your feelings safe from other people and get, oh, it's okay that I'm feeling that way. And then go maybe stick your head a little bit more in a place that's, quote, less safe. And know even if the other person does not receive it well, it's okay that I'm feeling that way and that they're feeling the other way too. And we can just continue hashing it out. That's what I got from what you were saying. Any thoughts, Elaine? What did you get from that?
I wanted to put in the notes or in the comments where people could reach, because I see we're kind of running out of time at this point.
We definitely are out of time.
Yeah, I know. I told you it goes really, really fast, but I thought it was important that I make sure that people would know how to get in touch with Stephanie. So I just typed in her website. It's kbromance.com.
Yeah, the abbreviation. My business name is Cardinal Blue Romance. Cardinal Blue is a New Hampshire state butterfly. The evolution of the butterfly is very symbolic to the evolution of life and relationships, and the abbreviation is not helpful in my case.
Romance.
That's okay. That's okay. So you're on Facebook, so people can find you on Facebook if they'd like to, and obviously they have your website if they'd like to get in touch with you as well, and your phone number. I'd like to type your phone number in there if I could. It's 603
361
361
Yes, 1127.
1127. Okay, so this way we know everybody has a way to get in touch with you if they'd like to speak to you one-to-one about intimacy and relationships. Yes. And how it might relate to themselves and their lives, or however it might. But if they'd like to read it, do we have a minute to have her speak a little bit about her business and how she might be able to help people in general, and a little bit about her practice?
We can take 30 quick seconds because we're at 8:05, so we don't want to keep our guests. But yeah, you can tell us about you in 30 seconds. If you can, Stephanie.
I'm completely virtual. My passion is helping people with becoming okay with conflict management and understanding conflict. I have a 12-week program. If the 12-week program goes great and they want to continue, I have a 6-month and a 12-month program. In the 12-week program, we focus on self-exploration. We really dig deep the person, embrace who they are, own their power, and help them break the cycle so that when they're going to engaging with new relationships or with their current relationship, they're able to have new skill sets where they're setting boundaries and being assertive in their desires and making that very clear.
Cool. Very cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I told you it was going to go quick. We'll have to have you come on again and maybe come on one of our events.
I feel like we got way more serious. We were having more fun in the background. So next time we definitely got to lighten it up a little.
All right, let's do that.
That's okay. First time for everything, right? You never know till you know. So here we go. Yeah, the next show, I think we're going to have a little change of topics. So maybe we'll change that up a little bit. So lots of things we could talk about based on our conversation before we came on air.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and wrap the show, and we can talk a bit more backstage if you want after that. But I want to thank everybody who watched the show, those of you who commented and shared the show. Of course, Tammy, Renee, Andy, Tammy Price, and let's see who else. We have maybe a returning person. I haven't seen Renee before. And so all of you who watched, all of you who commented, or if you did not comment, thank you for watching the show. We hope you find it valuable. Go back and share the show. All right. This was the Asound Yourself dating show. My name is Richard Francois, and this was, what's your name, illustrious co-hostess?
Elaine. Elaine Saunders.
Elaine Saunders. That's her name.
Illustrative co-host. Asound Yourself.
Have a good night, everybody.
It's astounding. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us.